Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another adventure in the life of the old-time rock and roller. Today's story will take us back to August 18th, 1977. Now, the Force had just played the Hollywood Palladium, and it was time for a break. I had been going really hard the last 4 years in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Asia, everywhere. So I booked a flight to visit my dad in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He was a history professor, a constitutional scholar, and I hadn't seen him in 5, 6, 7 years, so we were having a great visit. It was Wednesday afternoon, and we were planting a row of potatoes. And we were at it a couple of hours, and he said, "Howie, you're in pretty good shape. How did that happen?" I said, "Dad, I've been studying Chinese Kung Fu, Tiger Crane style, for 2 years. I should be in good shape." He said, "Oh, okay, well, that makes sense." Then he said, "What do you want to do tomorrow?" And I said, "I want you to drive me to Muscle Shoals, the hit recording capital of the world." And he said, "Oh, I hadn't really heard about that." And I said, "Oh, yes, they've been cutting great albums up there for years." And he said, "All right, we'll do it." So we got in the car the next day. I put my guitar in the trunk. We drove on up, and we're driving along, and he said, "How are we going to know what to do once we get there?" And I said, "We'll find a record store. We'll go into the record store, and I'll ask the guy working there, where are the recording studios?" So as soon as we got there, the Sheffield Mall was there on the left. We went in, I found a record store. I talked to the guy at the cashier, and he took out a piece of yellow stationery. And he said, "Now you go right up here to Woodward Avenue and turn right, and on the left, that'll be Fame Studio. That's Rick Hall's studio. You're going to want to go there, and then go to the end of Woodward Avenue, turn left, make another left, and on the left again will be Clayton Ivy's studio called Wishbone." And I said, "All right, beautiful." And then he said, "You go to the end of that road, and right over here is Jackson Highway, and that's Muscle Shoals Sound." I said, "Beautiful, thank you very much." Now, we could have gone in any order. I could have gone straight to Muscle Shoals Sound first, and up to Wishbone, and then to Rick Hall's place at Fame. But I followed it exactly as he drew it. I went into Fame Studio. It said, "I'm a studio musician from LA. I'm looking for some work. Can I leave my number with you?" And they said, "Sure." And then we went down the road and turned left and left again, and there was Wishbone Studio. And I went in, and Clayton Ivy was there, and I told him I had some songs, and I'd been playing and touring all over the world and in LA, and had a lot of experience. And he said, "Hey, that sounds great. If you move down to the Shoals, come on by, hang out, and maybe we'll cut some tracks." I said, "Okay, super." We continued on down till we got to Muscle Shoals Sound. Now, some people might call this luck. I call it divine providence. We walked in. Actually, we pulled into the parking lot. My dad said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go in there and talk to him." So he shut the car off. He never had air conditioning in his life, so he just rolled down the windows. He and my stepmother, Ellen, were there. And I walked in and talked to the receptionist, Carol Butkus, for a minute. She got Jimmy Johnson for me. And he came out and started talking to me. And I said, "Yeah, Jimmy, I've got some records here I've played on in LA. And I want to make some records. I want to record on some sessions. What's it going to take?" And he said, he looked at me and he kind of looked me up and down. And he told me years later He said, normally I would have told this kid where to go, and that was someplace that the sun didn't shine. But there was something about you, some kind of charisma. And I decided, instead of blowing you off, to say, you got your guitar with you? And I said, yeah, it's in the car. He said, go get it. I said, okay. I went out to the car, and my dad said, what's going on? And I said, I think I'm going to play on something. He said, oh, it's exciting. So I went in, and Jimmy was there, and David Hood was there. And they had just finished cutting a demo with George Jackson on a song called Old Time Rock and Roll. And he said, we need a solo here. We just have rhythm tracks. So I plugged into the Conn strobe tuner, tuned it up. I had a Les Paul Special that was tweaked out with a 5-way switch, and they plugged me into a twin reverb. I put the headphones on, and I hear da 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 da. Nothing happened. No band came in, nothing. So I hear it again. Da 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 da. And the band kind of realized, oh, that's our cue to come in. So the song came in, and I just started playing along. Now, whenever you're in the studio and you hear a song for the first time, immediately you try to recall any other song that you've played with that type of a progression. And this was a 1-4-5 moving progression. And I used to play the Rolling Stones song, Let It Bleed. And so I used that as my mental model as I was going through playing this song. And then it got to the solo, and Jimmy's waving me on, solo. Okay, so I played my solo, and then I played these going out licks and finished it up. And he said, hey, that wasn't bad. He said, leave your number with Carol Butkus, our studio manager, in case something happens with the song. I said, all right, cool. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Here's my card. Local 47, Musicians Union, LA. And I got back in the car, and Dad said, well, what happened? I said, I played on a song. We'll see if anything comes of it. And he said, okay. So we drove back to his farm, and that Saturday, I was flying in and out of the Memphis airport to go back to LA, and I learned that Elvis died the previous Tuesday, the 26th. And everybody was gloomy at the Memphis airport. And I understand why. So I put my guitar on the conveyor belt, saw it go off around behind the terminal area, and that was the last time I ever saw that guitar. Somebody in the back must have opened it up and said, oh, this is worth something. This isn't going anywhere. Lost the guitar. We lost Elvis. So I'm back at my apartment in West Hollywood, and it was maybe September, late September, and Carol Butkus called me up. And she said, hey, is this Howie McDonald? I said, yeah, speaking. And she said, hey, I need to get your union card number and your social, your info, because Bob Seger just bought that track, and it's coming out on the Stranger in Town album. I said, wow, this is great. And she said, and Capitol Records needs to pay you for the session. Okay, cool. So that was fabulous. Well, the record didn't come out that year. It didn't come out until the following spring, right around the same time the Rolling Stones released Sticky Fingers with Sugar Blue on there. So I ran out and grabbed a copy of the album, and I was so excited, and I thought, man, this is gonna really help me out in my studio work here in LA. Opened up the album, and on the back it said, thanks to the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. And my heart kind of went glump. Oh no. It was not until Bob Seger's greatest hits that I was actually mentioned doing the guitar solo. So the first album, Stranger in Town, when I originally got this, it was over 9 million copies sold. Now it's exceeded platinum, and it's in some other kind of rare category. And they called me and said I'm eligible for an upgrade if I wanted one. Well, then I got the platinum for Bob's greatest hits. And then later I got a gold for Bob's ultimate hits, which I understand now might be platinum. So this was tremendous. Later, CNN voted it the song of the decade. Tom Cruise made his debut in Risky Business running around in his underwear playing air guitar to it. And I understand it was the #1 rock and roll most requested jukebox song in the history of the jukebox, which made me the most often heard unknown guitar player on the planet. Pretty dubious distinction right there. Well, over the years, I got a few emails from other people who said, hey, I played on that record. How come you got the credit? And as you will see on a YouTube video where Jimmy Johnson and David Hood and Roger Hawkins all explained what happened. They mailed the tape, the whole demo, the master, to Bob Seger. At first he didn't like it, but then later he loved it, and he overdubbed his voice on it. Well, then the Silver Bullet Band, who had been by and large doing 50% of the Seger stuff, and the Muscle Shoals rhythm section was doing 50%. Now, I had Rock and Roll Never Forgets, and the previous album, I think it was the Night Moves album, and I was a big fan of his. Well, Bob explained, we tried to cut it with the Silver Bullet Band, and it just didn't have the same feel. And the guys at Muscle Shoals said, yeah, we brought in this guitar player to try a solo on it, and that guitar player to try a solo on it, and it just didn't hold up. And so my original demo recording is the one that we hear on the radio today. And that, my friends, is why I call myself the old-time rock and roller, because truly I have earned that title. Now, I want to thank you for coming along with me on today's brief story, but it's a very important story. And it was the first platinum album that I played on, but not the last. So I am truly blessed to be there, because think about it. If it was any other day of the week, they wouldn't have been cutting the song. If it was any other time of the day, the rhythm section wouldn't have just cut the song and split for lunch the exact moment. 5 minutes later, I pulled up. You can call that coincidence. You can call that luck. I call it fate. And I call it divine intervention. So I want to thank you for coming along on today's story. If you would hit the like button, subscribe, maybe share it with some of your friends, it would really help me out. It would be a blessing. Thank you very much. Keep the love in your heart, a song in your head, and I will see you down the story highway on the next adventure from the old-time rock and roller. So long, my friends.